When it comes to selling a house with tenants, things can get complicated. You, the seller, would like to sell your home for top dollar in a convenient, prompt time frame, whereas the tenants, they still have their tenant rights and they'd like to enjoy the property with no hassle or maybe the minimal hassle. So there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there. And in this video, I'm going to give you some landlord tips and some home selling tips. So you've got a property with tenants that you'd like to sell. I'm going to take you through the process that I take all my clients through. Okay, and that starts with touring the property. Okay, I'm going to highly recommend that you tour the property yourself. Now, if that's just not possible because you're out of town, then it's important that your agent goes for you. And it begins by that agent or yourself scheduling a time with the tenant to come take a look at the property. Right out of the gate, you're going to figure out how cooperative your tenant is for allowing access. Is it one of those things where the tenant says, sure, no problem, today's fine, this afternoon or tomorrow morning? Or does the tenant just not return your call for 3 days and say they're not available to do it for next week? When it comes to access, there are safeguards in the lease that allows the landlord access, generally with 24-hour notice. Now, I'm talking about Nevada specifically, but even then, it doesn't just mean you can send a text message and show up 24 hours later. Generally there's things about, putting a notice on the door and just this more formal process where if your tenant is not gonna be cooperative with allowing access for showings, then it's just not really gonna be practical to show and sell that house while that tenant is in there. Paying attention to how easy it is to get in to see the home is really the first step. And then the second step is once you make it in there, how clean is the place? Does it smell nice? Is it cluttered? Is it a mess? Because once again, these tenants, they want to live there and live their life. You're the one that wants to sell the home for top dollar. Tenant's not getting any money from this sale. So they might not be so inclined to go out of their way to make the house perfect for every one of your showings. So once you've taken this time to do your diligence and explore the property, you're gonna have a couple scenarios that you're gonna come across. And the first scenario we're gonna talk about is that everything just works out perfect. So the Tenants Cooperative, you go in and the house shows great, things smell great, everything's in great shape, fantastic. And if the tenant's willing to cooperate and work with you on showing the house, then great. A home that's nicely furnished, sure shows well, generally better than a vacant home. And if someone's living there, it's obviously nice to have someone keeping an eye on the property and the landscaping. So if that's the case, then great. You just proceed with selling the home like normal, getting professional photos and 3D tours and video, and you're off to the races. So that's really plan A. The dream scenario is that the house is tip-top, ready to go, and the tenants are cooperative. So plan B is that it's just not ideal. Maybe it's a little too difficult to get in to see the house, or the home just doesn't show well at all. Now remember, there are tenant rights, and the tenant has the right to enjoy the house. Of course, they don't have the right to destroy the house, but that's a different topic. So the tenants have the rights to enjoy the house and to not accommodate every one of the showings that you'd like to do. So if you just get the feeling that this is just not headed in the right direction, that's where I commonly will advise landlords to give their tenants their notice and wait to sell the property until that tenant is out. Once that tenant is out, the home can be professionally cleaned, staged, whatever needs to be done to get it ready, and then it can be shown and sold for the top dollar, and you just remove that headache from the picture. Plan C, to me, is the last resort. Once again, if you've got uncooperative tenants in the house and it doesn't show well, it's gonna drag out the process. Your days on market are gonna pile up because people can't get in, and even when they do, the home's not gonna show as well, which is absolutely going to result in a lower sales price and most likely a longer time on market. But I get it. There are situations where sellers just need the tenant in there while the property is up for sale. Perhaps there's a mortgage on the property and the homeowner just doesn't want to float that mortgage while the home sits empty and on the market. I get it. So my advice is that you come up with a plan to incentivize your tenant to be a better tenant. What does that look like? Maybe you're willing to pay the cleaning service to go in there twice a month if the tenant's going to be more cooperative and allow access with 24-hour notice for showings. Maybe you're willing to give them a break on their rent in lieu of them keeping the place spotless and allowing showings, 4 days a week. So yes, it's absolutely not something you have to do. Just as there's tenant rights, you have landlord rights, and what's in the lease is what's in the lease. However, if you're trying to grease the wheels and get this tenant to be a little more cooperative so you can have a better selling experience, then incentivizing the tenant is the way to go. So just some general advice for a situation where perhaps you're not looking to sell right this minute, but you might sell your rental later on after a couple more tenants. Or perhaps maybe you're living in a house that you're going to move out of and then rent later. Well, one thing that you can do to help prepare in advance is when there's a break or a little lapse between occupancy and that home is vacant, get it perfect, clean, painted, staged, show ready, ready to go, and get professional photos and a 3D tour, also known as a Matterport tour, done in advance. That way, when the time comes, if you're going to sell it with a tenant in the property, and whether they're a great tenant or not a great tenant, you've already got the marketing materials ready to go in your fingertips. And hey, if you keep renting the property, then you can just use those marketing materials over and over again. So those are just some general home selling tips that also kind of fall under landlord tips. If you have a question or would like some specific advice about your situation, give us a call at 702-442-1150 or shoot me an email, rob@robjensen.com.